Welcome in, college football fans. It's the first and long college football show. We're here to break down a post spring season preview for 2024. And today we're going to be talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks. Welcome in, Razorback country. There's a strong contingent of Arkansas fans out there in the YouTube world. And we've come into contact with you guys a few times and really enjoy talking some Razorback football. Lots of knowledgeable Razorback fans out there and college football fans in general alike. That Arkansas didn't have a great year last year, Mason, but I'm thinking that things are looking up, and I'm hoping so for Sam Pittman. Welcome in, buddy. How you doing today? You ready to talk some Razorback football and talk about the Pit boss, Sam Pittman?
Absolutely. I can always talk some Razorback football. This is an exciting team. I'm sitting here doing this breakdown and I find myself like almost becoming a fan of the team. And I feel like Arkansas is an easy team to root for. I think Sam Pittman is an easy team to root, easy coach to root for, and therefore his team's easy to root for. And they've been sort of an underdog in the SEC West for a long time. Now they come in and hire Calipari on the basketball side of things, and the thought is that the NIL structure of the program is about to really take off, and that's going to bleed over and have an effect into football. We'll wait and see. Let's see what happens. Moving forward with this program. But hey, here with the season coming up, 2024 looks pretty good for the Arkansas Razorbacks in comparison to what they were able to do last year, as you mentioned, being a pretty lame season, I think, by all standards for the Razorbacks.
It was a disappointing performance for sure, Mason, and I think a lot of the root cause of that was the offensive line last year was just absolutely putrid and hard to compete or be competitive in any situation in the SEC whenever you don't have those big hogs, if you will, up front paving the way. And KJ Jefferson has departed this team. He's at Central Florida now, and you got Rocket Sanders gone. So it's going to be a new look, Mason. And to match that new look, we've got Bobby Petrino come riding over the horizon on that famous motorcycle and neck brace. And I kid, but I know Arkansas fans seem to be pretty excited about the idea of Bobby Petrino having full reign on this offense. And judging by the spring game, it sure looked like he did. What do you think about Bobby Petrino coming back to the Arkansas Razorbacks in offensive coordinator form?
Yeah, it's almost like he's coming in to sort of right the wrong, and leaving the program as a head coach back just seemingly a few years ago. It's probably been, I guess, close to 10 years. But anyways, I think that it was a great hire. I think that when you look at the Bobby Petrino effect this year, I think when it's all said and done, this is going to be the most impactful assistant coach hire in the SEC at the very least. The only reason I don't say in college football is because we do know Chip Kelly is going to Ohio State, and that could have also a national championship type effect. So that's the only reason I don't put him above Chip Kelly, just given the circumstances. But nonetheless, I think that he has the chance to absolutely enhance this program. That, along with some offensive line changes, you mentioned that being a weakness for them last season. I certainly agree, and I think that was addressed. On top of that, you've got a new quarterback, and I don't want to bury the lead here and get too far ahead of myself, but long story short, man, I'm super excited to see Bobby Petrino back with the Arkansas Razorbacks. I think that he's going to be a heck of a yang to Sam Pittman's yin. This seems like a pretty interesting, coaching hire, but I think one that's going to work. I think they're going to mesh well. I think they're two very different type of coaches. And also Sam Pittman can lean on Bobby Petrino's head coaching experience as well, which is something that a head coach should embrace. And I think that Sam Pittman will.
I totally agree with something you said there. The bringing Bobby Petrino was a great opportunity for Sam Pittman to hand over the offense to someone, and it seems like that's 100% the intent, and that's what Sam Pittman has said himself in press conferences throughout the spring that this is Bobby Petrino's offense, and he will be he'll be calling the plays, he'll be making all of the calls on the offensive side, and Sam Pittman is I think he's a motivational guy, Mason. I think he's a good spirit. I think he's a somebody really good to have around the locker room. Fire up that damn jukebox. I mean, he knows how to get the guys rawed up. But when you're talking about being a head coach, which he had not been a head coach up until he got to Arkansas, it's a whole different set of tasks, and it's more of a CEO role, especially when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar entity that is the Arkansas Razorbacks or any SEC or Power 4 school. I almost said Power 5. Whoops. But
Not no more.
I think Bobby Petrino coming in and taking over this offense is a net gain for the Arkansas Razorbacks, and I'm interested to see what he can do because at Texas A&M last year, Bobby Petrino had the opposite of that. He did not have full control of the offense, and we all wondered going into 2023 what his role would be for the Texas A&M Aggies. Well, as it turned out, it wasn't much of a role at all, it didn't seem. So I know that he's probably very excited to be at the helm. Let's kind of jump into it, and let's start here at the top, and a topic that everybody wants to talk about. We mentioned earlier, KJ Jefferson is gone. So out with the old and in with the new. The new is Talon Green, the quarterback from Boise State last year. Only played in 5 games last year, Mason. 57% completion, 1,752 yards in 5 games, which is pretty impressive, I thought. 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He played in 2022 as well, and had a little bit better numbers. Played in more games. Completed more around 62% of his passes, and had a better touchdown to interception ratio in that season as well. So kind of a rocky year as far as like injury wise and things. So this is a guy that has familiarity with their, with running the football. And I think that's how they're going to use this guy. This guy seems pretty athletic, don't you think? Whenever I saw him in the spring game, this guy was you can't take off and run and get tackled in the spring game as a starting quarterback, and everybody understands that. But I thought I saw multiple situations where his fleet of foot would have came in handy in those situations, and I think he's going to be able to provide a little bit of relief for this offensive line that is going to, at least in the first few games of the season, is going to be trying to figure out their identity as a line, and really probably still trying to figure out who's playing where. So without, I guess, getting it all the way into the offensive line, because we'll get into that in a second, but what are your thoughts on Talon Green, and what is he going to bring to this offense?
Yeah, I think Talon Green is a big reason why KJ Jefferson is playing for the Knights over there in Orlando with UCF. I think that Talon Green is what KJ Jefferson was supposed to be for. He's going to be what KJ Jefferson was supposed to be for Arkansas this past season, and just kind of wasn't. I get that there was some poor offensive line play. Certainly, that had a factor. But ultimately, let's be honest, KJ didn't look great. He didn't look like himself. And I think that Green is a little bit better, honestly, as a quarterback as a whole. He looked great on the deep ball in the spring game. I'd like to see him connect a little bit more on those 10 to 20-yard passes. But I also think that the Petrino effect that we mentioned earlier it is not going to be stronger on any other player than Talon Green, because they're going to want to make a splash with this guy to show that Bobby Petrino can develop quarterbacks, and you can come to Arkansas, you can transfer to Arkansas even, and instantly become better, instantly become a better quarterback than what you were at your previous program. And become a baller. I'm super excited for what Green brings to the table. I think that you mentioned his numbers at Boise State. They were good, not great. I'm hoping, and for Hogs fans, I'm hoping that Petrino has an effect that brings him up and elevates his game to greatness, which is kind of what this team needs. This isn't like a Georgia where you don't need your quarterback to do much more than what Stetson Bennett did in 2021, or you don't need a game manager necessarily at Arkansas. At Arkansas, you need a stud. You need somebody who can come in and be a game changer, and an absolute playmaker. I think that's what Taylor Green is going to provide for Arkansas. Super excited for this team, and I think that Hogs fans are extremely excited. And after watching the spring game, I can see why.
Yeah, yeah, and we had kind of alluded to Taylor Green's rushing ability, which you're not typically going to see in a spring game on display. For obvious reasons, you don't want your quarterback getting hurt, but ran for almost 500 yards last year at Boise State, and that's something that I felt like was kind of missing from KJ Jefferson's game. He always prided himself kind of as to being like a Cam Newton type player, but I never felt like he was quite as dynamic of a runner at that level. So it'll be interesting to see what Coach Petrino can do with Taylor Green and those wheels that he's got under him. But let's kind of talk about the guys that are going to be protecting him, Mason. And I think that's kind of the weakness of this offense right now. I liked a lot of other things that I saw. We're going to get into wide receivers and running backs in a minute. And we've got the whole transfer portal class that we're going to take a look at here in just a couple of minutes. So I know that Arkansas has addressed some of these needs through, the portal and things like that. But, 2 tackles and a new center, I'm worried. I'm a little bit worried about this offensive line again. I don't think it could be much worse than last year, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that there's not strides being made. Eric Mateos is the new offensive line coach, and I'm sure that having a head coach that was I would say one of the best offensive line coaches in the game whenever he was coaching at Georgia. I think that maybe those guys can get together and figure something out, but. What's your outlook on this offensive line? I thought I saw several situations where the quarterback was rushed a little bit, and you can kind of see the defenders getting into the backfield there, even on running plays, and it seems like it's a work in progress at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming out of the spring game, I think you look at the positions that they're that they filled with transfer portal players, and it's your most important positions on the offensive line, and that's left tackle, right tackle, and center. I mean, it doesn't get much tougher to replace players on the offensive line than those 3 positions. I do like who they brought in. I think that they have some real potential, specifically Addison Nichols coming over from Tennessee. I think he's going to be a really good center for Arkansas. I think he is an upgrade at the position. I think all 3 of the transfers are an upgrade from what they had. And I'm not I don't have any qualms with the left guard or the right guard either, Kudus or Braun, as it stands today. I'm excited for the starting 5. I think that they're going to be good. I don't think that they have a flex 6 offensive lineman that a lot of these, great programs have. Somebody that you can just fill in and play right away. And so that's what worries me about this O-line is the depth. If somebody goes down, do they have someone who can step in and play without any sort of drop off? I'm not sure that they do. That's what concerns me by a number standpoint alone. As we're looking at this today, Arkansas's got some deficiencies, so they still need to bring in some bodies, bring in some guys who can develop and learn. Understand Pittman and Mateos, like you said, those are 2 of the best offensive line coaches in the game. You should be able to develop at that position, but it's tough to do that if you don't have 15 offensive linemen on the roster to choose from, and that they just don't have that right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's just a question mark. I mean, it doesn't mean that it can't be, that it's not going to be handled to the best of the coach's abilities. It doesn't mean that it won't be decent. I have questions right now that we're going to need to have answered by fall camp and whenever it kicks off in August. Let's kind of jump over to running back, and then we'll go to wide receivers and tight ends, and make our way to the defense. And as I said, we're going to go through the transfer portal class there kind of at the end to answer some more of these questions and kind of look at guys who have left out of the program. So at running back, you bring in a guy, Jaquindon Jackson, over from Utah. And look, I really like this guy. I really liked what I was seeing from this guy, and at times making something out of nothing. And that's honestly, Mason, that's what makes a good running back is whenever you can make something out of nothing. Anybody can run through holes that are the size of a truck. It's making guys miss and making the initial first guy miss almost every single time, or taking him for a ride, as you just saw him score a touchdown there on those highlights. Rashad Dabinion is a guy that's returning from last year. He had 82 carries, not a great season, 3.2 yards per carry, but I mean, you got to remember who's running back behind. I know I said that, that's the sign of a good running back, making something where there ain't nothing. Well, you can't make something where there's nothing every single time. So I thought it was kind of tough circumstances to run back behind that line last year. And it looked, I guess if I'm remembering this correctly, is it Isaiah Augustive? I think he hit the transfer portal. So that was a guy that played in the spring game and put something on tape. And he actually looked pretty decent. I thought he had 35 carries last year. Not real like significant yardage for the Razorbacks last year, but was a guy that was going to be a depth piece, probably your third piece. So now I got a little bit of questions as far as who's that third running back, because we all know the attrition that takes place at the running back position, especially in the SEC. But overall, the 1-2 punch I like, and I think is a pretty good mesh for this offense and Petrino's scheme.
Yeah, and so to start, I'll kind of start with your last point there. Braylon Russell is coming in as a running back, and he's going to be your number 3 running back, 4-star guy, 3-star, or the number 3 overall prospect out of the state of Arkansas. So he's a hometown guy, number 21 running back in the country according to ESPN. Okay. Excuse me, that's according to Rivals. So
he's a freshman this year.
He'll be a true freshman coming in.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be that's a position a freshman can step in and play, and they're giving him number 0. So that's got to mean something, right?
Sure.
That's a very sought after number this day and age. And a 4-star recruit for Arkansas is a excellent slot for any team, not just Arkansas. You mentioned Jaquindon Jackson coming in. This was the best transfer player overall that came to Arkansas, and he's filling a position of great need at running back. You had not just Rocket Sanders leave, but also AJ Green. He's no longer in the program, and that was the backup that played decent. It wasn't stellar by any means, but a great 1-2 punch right there that you just lost. Jaquindon Jackson comes in. He was a top 100 overall recruit coming out of high school, and was the number 7 quarterback in the nation coming out of the state of Texas. Initially went to the Texas Longhorns as a quarterback, and then transferred to Utah and ended up playing running back. And the rest is history in the making. Maybe we'll see. So, I really like what he brings to the table. I think you talk about athleticism. A guy who was playing quarterback transitions to running back, and he seems to be a better running back, seems to be a better fit. And I think he's still growing at that position and learning the vision and things like that. So I believe that as good as I thought Rocket Sanders was, and he didn't have a great season last year, was banged up, was running behind a poor offensive line. But I really do think that Jackson has the chance to be even better than what Rocket Sanders was and is. And I'm really excited for what he brings to the table.
Yeah, I like I said, I feel good about this 1-2 punch, and I'm glad to hear that they got some fresh meat coming in. And I agree with you. I think fresh running back is one of the few positions on the field in the SEC where a freshman can contribute. The only typical issues there are in that situation is pass protection and helping out on pass protection. But a good coach, a good offensive coordinator can totally scheme around that, and that personnel and running backs coach will cycle those guys in and out and make sure that they're protected there. I feel like you can kind of work around that as long as that's just not your your every down back. Wide receiver group. Tyrone Broden was a transfer, I guess, from a couple years ago. Came over from Bowling Green. I really liked what I saw from him in this game, in this spring game. We talked about Arkansas earlier in the offseason, and we've heard over and over again how excited these wide receivers are to play in this new system and how much fun that they're having. And it kind of showed on the field. I thought the wide receivers looked pretty daggum good. Tyrone Broden being one of those guys. Andrew Armstrong is back. He had 56 receptions, 764 yards, and 5 touchdowns last year in what we've already said was a very poor offense. So I know those guys got to be very excited about the new offensive coordinator coming in, and I guess they at this point just need to develop some chemistry, and hopefully we'll be able to do that throughout the summer with their new quarterback. What are your thoughts on the wide receiver room? I feel like that's a couple of good ones there, and I didn't really see a whole lot of issues overall with the wide receivers, at least not in this spring game.
No, I mean, no issues, no just absolute ballers. I thought that, really the best pass catcher that I saw was Jaquindon Jackson coming out of the backfield. We just saw him scamper for a touchdown coming out of the backfield, and he's elusive. He looks like a great athlete. I can't say enough about the kid. But as far as wide receiver, you mentioned those two. Isaiah Sategna is that sort of slot receiver. I think that they all look pretty good, but if you're looking for a couple that could sort of boom here, I got to start with Jordan Anthony, who comes over from Texas A&M. He's a transfer. He was a 4-star overall player. And I think that he's got the potential to shoot up the ranks and eventually at least crack the 2 deep and maybe eventually win a starting position. And then outside of that, you've got CJ Brown, who's an in-state Arkansas player coming in as a true freshman, 3-star guy, but sometimes you find a diamond in the rough, and he certainly got the size to do it. And so I'm excited to see what CJ Brown comes in at 6'1", almost 200 pounds. Let's see what he can do, and see if some hometown Arkansas cooking is what the Razorbacks are needing.
Yeah, yeah, and last but certainly not least, Luke Hass and Varkeus Gums are the two tight ends that seem to kind of pop to me, especially Gums. I believe he was a transfer from, was it Texas, if I'm remembering that correctly? There's only
North
been
Texas.
North Texas. There's only been a couple of thousand transfers. I don't know why I can't remember who all went where.
Just do better, dude.
I know, man. I should have all 2,000 listed here, no doubt. But I think that they're going to be fine at tight end. I liked what I saw. Going to need a lot of help from those guys, though. Those tight ends are going to have to be paramount in this offensive line, to help this offensive line out and this offense get where it needs to go. What you got any thoughts on the tight ends?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like Luke Haas was off to an excellent start. I mean, this guy looked like a all SEC freshman tight end type of player here. A little bit undersized, kind of that Brock Bowers size, 6'3", 230. Good pass catcher, athletic, and everything. But broke his collarbone after the 5th game, or in the 5th game last year, and that was kind of it for him. But I think when you're a team that struggles on offensive line, and again, hopefully Arkansas has righted some of those wrongs and those shortcomings. But a tight end can be your best friend. Just kind of dump the ball off to for a quarterback. Quarterback that's new in the system. Maybe they get Luke Haas, and hopefully he stays healthy. But maybe they get him more involved this year. Certainly looked like the playmaker that could do it last season.
Yep. Overall, I feel like the offense is going to be better uh, in 2024 than it was 2023, and I think that I can say that with confidence. And how much better, I think, is yet to be seen. I think will depend on that offensive line, as we said. Let's jump over into the defense and um, Travis Williams as the DC. Honestly, Mason, I didn't think that this defense was as bad last year as it looked on paper. Personally, I mean, they were hung out to dry. They were completely hung out to dry by this offense, and we've seen what that can do to a defense. I mean, it just seemed like the defense was out there the whole game. By the end of the game, they wore down, and in all honesty, I felt like their pass defense was actually pretty decent, and maybe some issues there on the defensive line. But as I said, it was a tough year. Whenever the offense is sputtering like that, it puts a ton of pressure on the defense. And last year it was a big case of that. Let's talk about this defensive line. So you return Landon Jackson, which is huge. Okay, that's a big deal to be able to return that guy at defensive end. And Cameron Ball, 32 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, half a sack in 2023. Those are a couple of great pieces to bring back on a defensive line that you're going to need to lean on for sure. What are your thoughts on defensive line this year, and how can they improve? I guess because the trenches are huge in the SEC, and everybody knows that, but defensive line is going to be a spot that's going to make or break this defense, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited for this D line. I think that Anton Junkage coming in might be defensively. I think he is their best overall transfer on paper, at least. So having an edge player come in like that, I think is going to be big. You get a little bit more of that speed off the edge to couple with Jackson. I think that they're going to be pretty tough. That the front four with Jackson, Gregory, Ball, and Junkage coming at you, that's a really good top four. I mean, your top half in the SEC with those four. The players behind them, I don't know as much about. I'm not going to say that there's a huge drop off because I hadn't seen a lot of these players play, but I know that the front four, those are going to be really tough to handle for pretty much every team.
Well, and these things go hand in hand, right? That defensive line keeps those big bear paws of the offensive line off of your linebackers. And so let's jump into linebackers because I think we both feel pretty decent about defensive line, and it's going to be a spot that needs to be leaned on for sure because the linebacker room is a mystery to me as well. Brad Spence, I thought looked really good at inside backer. I like Brad Spence. I think that's a good piece. But beyond that, Mason, I feel like you're counting on Xavier Sori from UGA, which was a highly touted, highly recruited guy, not a ton of experience. You're going to be counting on him to step up, and I think he can. That's a tough position to jump in the SEC and carry a whole unit. So I feel like they're going to need some other guys to really step up in that linebacker room if they're going to be successful at all, really, in 2024. What's your thoughts on linebacker room?
Yeah, I may be a little bit higher on Sori than you. I think that this is a guy who got overshadowed by some really, really talented players at UGA. Sure. I mean, we saw Pop, Jamon Dumas Johnson, who transferred from Georgia to Kentucky to go play, and he's a future NFL guy, and I think that Sori might be a future NFL guy also. This was a guy who was a top 100 overall player, a fringe 5-star, depending on the service you look at when he was coming out of high school, out of IMG Academy, and I think he still has some. I would say I guess he still has his best football ahead of him. He is very athletic. He kind of played in different spots at UGA, in the middle, kind of off the edge a little bit as a linebacker. But ultimately, I think he is going to have a pretty good little program. Now with the defense that Arkansas runs, they kind of mask the linebacker room where they like to play a nickel, basically have 5 defensive backs. They're running a 4-2-5. So, when you look at it, you've only got two linebackers on the field, so it's pretty much going to be Sorey and Spence for the most part. It seems like now Spence is a big dude. He's kind of a thumper, but behind them, I think you're going to see true freshman Bradley Shaw step up. A little bit of a smaller size at 6'1", about 210 pounds. He's going to need to put some weight on, and he probably will in a full offseason. But if he could get up to about 215 or 220, I think that'd be a good playing weight. Good fast guy, 4-star prospect, number 101 overall as a recruit. And I think that he's going to be cracking that 2 deep right away and kind of be that third linebacker that they're able to rotate in and out, which is going to be great in the future for Arkansas. But good for the young man to I think eventually crack that 2 deep. He hasn't done it yet, but I think that he is going to be the player in the future for the Razorbacks.
Yeah. Yep. And I see some pieces that they're adding through this transfer portal that I certainly like. We'll kind of go through those at the end here, but before we do that, let's talk about the secondary. I felt pretty good about the secondary. The more I dug into it, I'll say it again. The linebacker room is the weakest room on this defense, I think. Yeah, I think that's pretty much goes without saying. And I say weakest, I mean just with the most questions, right? That's the most questions to be answered. And the secondary, I feel good. You've got experience. You got a guy like Hudson Clark. It's his 5th year. 51 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 5 pass deflections, and a pick last year. So you've got him returning, as I said, for his 5th year of college football. Jaden Johnson, 62 tackles. 30 of those were solo. Really good open field tackler there. 1.5 tackles for loss. Had an interception, 4 pass breakups last year. And then on top of that, you bring in Danico Slaughter, and you bring in a guy like Jaheim Singletary. So I really, really like that group, at least on the front line. I'm not, positive what the rest of the room looks like as far as the depth pieces go. I think everybody kind of figures that out as the year goes on. You will have other guys getting snaps, but so long as those 4 guys can stay healthy, I like the outlook. And as I said, I think my thoughts from last year continue. I don't think this passing defense was I don't think it was nearly as bad as what people thought, or maybe just it didn't get paid attention to a whole lot. So what's your thought on the secondary as we kind of round out the defense and the team as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the guys that you mentioned, it seems like it seems like it's going to be Braxton, Mitchell, Slaughter, Robinson, and Metcalf that are your 5 starters. As of right now, you mentioned Hudson Clark is a guy who's going to get significant playing time given his experience. He's going to be somebody you can throw out there and play right away. I think Jaheim Singletary is a guy who started his career at Georgia, really couldn't get things going, transferred out and went to Arkansas. This is his 2nd year now in the program. I think we're kind of waiting on this guy to figure it out. And certainly athletic. I think it's I think it's a size issue. Honestly, they call him the Slim Reaper, and he is very slim, and he's very tall too at 6'3". So this is a big lanky guy who, if things just click for him, he could be one of those top 3 round NFL guys. But we haven't seen it matriculate onto the field yet. Maybe this is the year he gets his opportunity to do that. And then the freshman coming in, Selman Bridges. He was a number 68 overall player by ESPN's rankings, number 100 by 247, and I think 121 by On3. So this was a highly, highly ranked guy coming in as a true freshman, and could be someone who we see contribute early on. And then at nickelback, you got TJ Metcalf, who I think all Arkansas fans will agree is kind of the future of this room. Cousin of DK Metcalf, and as a true freshman last year, played all 12 games, had some pretty significant plays and playing time, and is someone who I think as a true freshman, it's tough to see kind of come in the SEC and play DB, and he did it almost seamlessly. So we're expecting a big step up in year 2 for him, and he could honestly end up being the best out of the bunch, out of a pretty decent DB room, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's pretty decent. I see that they brought in Anthony Switzer there from Utah State on the 26th of April, so that was a spring addition there as well to come in and play, I think, safety. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I like this team, more than I did last year for sure. Let's kind of take a look at their schedule. And you can see there on the right side of the schedule on your screen if you're watching on video. And if you're not, it's the win-loss over-unders there at 5.5 set for Arkansas. So we've broke the schedule down once, Mason. Some big games, obviously. Going to have Auburn on the road there in September. That's a game that you play every single year or have in the past. Being a West team, are no longer in the West. There is no divisions in the SEC anymore. So got Tennessee on there, obviously going to be a big one. LSU, Missouri, A&M. There's no Alabama and there's no Georgia, Mason. So I think that's a net gain. But instead of an Alabama or Georgia, you get a Texas. Whoops. You get an Ole Miss. Whoops. Those are going to be tough games. Very, very tough games. But guess what, man? They get both of those at home. The majority of the toughest games of the year are at home for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I have to say, by looking at this, one of the most important games of the season is going to come very early against Oklahoma State. You got to win that football game, because if you don't, it's a long road to hoe, brother. And that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough one early in the season. Oklahoma State is going to be packed out there. Really looking forward to that matchup on September 7th. What's your thoughts on the schedule this year and that win-loss over-under set at 5.5? I'll tell you right now. Well, actually, let's look at the schedule, and then I'll tell you what I think about the 5.5. What's your thoughts?
Well, real quick, I'm gonna go through some of these games right here. So I'm counting 4 wins right off the bat. So I'm not sure who that team is on August 31st, who they open up with, but that
it's
team,
Arkansas Pine Bluff.
That's right, Arkansas Pine Bluff, UAB, Mississippi State, and Louisiana Tech, I think, are 4 wins, right? If you're trying to get to that over 5.5 games, I think you've already got 4 in the bag, right? So you got to find 2 more wins. If you're looking at this schedule, I think what you have to ask yourself as an Arkansas fan is, would you rather get 2 of those wins and get to 6, or would you rather be competitive in 11 out of these 12 games, right? What would you be happier with if you win 4 games and you're competitive in 11 out of 12, or would you rather win 6 and not be competitive in the other 6? Because to me, I think the former is actually says more about the program than the latter. And I do think that I do think that Arkansas is going to have a stronger case to be made for a team that's just competitive, especially towards the end of the season with like a Missouri. If you're taking Missouri down to the wire and you can show some improvement, I think that that's going to build onto what they've got going on in Arkansas. And this year, it needs to be a building year. It doesn't need to be a year that you necessarily go bowling. If they do go bowling, great. But if they go bowling, but they're not competitive in the other games, then I don't think that that's necessarily a step forward. I think that they have the team and the potential to be competitive against Oklahoma State. They could definitely beat Oklahoma State. They could beat Auburn. They could beat Texas A&M. I'm not putting it past them to beat Tennessee or LSU, but if you're not competitive in any of those games, then I think that you're headed in the wrong direction, because the talent is there this year. The coaching staff is there. They got Enos out of there. They never wanted him in the first place. Petrino's in there. So you've got the pieces to do it. I just want to see it all come together and build on the 2024 season, play for the 2025 season, which I know is tough to do. You want to win now, but I think that there's a real succession plan in place for this team to get better this year and be great next year.
Yeah. What are you taking over, or are you taking under on that 5.5?
I'm gonna take the under. I think they're gonna end up with 5. I think they
I know
drop
it.
one of the two to Oklahoma State or Auburn. And or they could lose both of those and maybe pick up a win somewhere where they're not supposed to, like against an LSU or a Tennessee later in the season, as Green kind of gets his feet up under him and starts to understand the offense a little bit more. I just think it's set up with all the experience that Oklahoma State has for them to win that game on the road. Um, for Oklahoma State to win that game, that is. And then Auburn, I think they're a little bit ahead of where Arkansas is right now. It's going to be tough to go play in Jordan Hare anyways. So to me, I think that the schedule sets up for an under. I think it's going to be five wins, but coming out of this season, like I mentioned, I think Arkansas fans are going to feel really good about the 2025 season.
I'm with you on the under, man. I got to ride the under. That's what my gut's telling me. And look, it really comes down to this offensive line and linebacker room. Those two positions are big enough questions for me to where I'm out on the over. But if those two things are answered adequately, I could definitely see this team getting to 6, and I think 6 has got to be the goal this year. As an Arkansas fan or a player or a coach, 6 has got to be what you're trying to get to and get to a bowl game this year. Arkansas fans, thank you so much for watching. Come hang out with us on the First and Long College Football Show. We're going to be having these videos dropping every single day. By the time you're seeing this, they're going to be dropping every single day. All the big teams in the Power 4 conferences, we're going to be doing a preview for the season. We're so glad that you came and watched with us at First and Long College Football Show, and we hope to see you again real soon. Thanks.